Okay, so I apologize. We haven't learned the last 2 weeks. For 2 weeks, this is the first time you should know in the year and a half we've been learning together that I missed and didn't learn for 2 weeks in a row with you. There are times where we missed a week here and there, but I've never done 2 weeks till now, so I apologize. Um, we are learning about the midah of anivas, about humility, and now he's discussing humility and four different components in order for a person in areas that person has to be humble in. The first one that we discussed the last time was humility in our actions and the way we carry out humility, in the way we act, in the way we speak, and things like that. And now, in the second of the components related to humility, is discussing about not being offended when people offend you, not responding back. Obviously, an arrogant person who feels that they deserve a lot of kavod, when they're slighted, they're gonna respond back pretty harshly and pretty strongly. So a humble person, okay, let it go. Yeah, who am I? Okay, want to insult me? Go for it. Whatever. I'm willing to forgive. Also, forgiving easily. That's tied to it. So let's see what the Ramchal says. It says the Ramchal, Chelik Hashini, who svilas halbonos. This is a person who could tolerate insults. Hine perish amr zachron lebracha, and Chazal say, Lemi no say avon. There's a famous Gemara that's actually this Gemara is relevant to like Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. Who is a person who's going to have their sins forgiven? The Misha over al pesha, someone who's willing to overlook the sins of others. Gemara literally in Rosh Hashanah daf Yud Zayin Amud Beis, right? So someone does something wrong to you. Here it just says someone you overlook someone's sins. I think it's explained that this is referring to someone who sins you and does something wrong to you, and you're willing to overlook this sin that they did. I believe I said the story. It's been a while probably since I said the story, but I did say a story, I believe, it during this year at some point, or last year and a half. I heard this from Dr. Pelkovitz, that one time Rabbi Mordechai Willig got a phone call at home, and his wife looks over and sees him in the kitchen, and he's dancing. Now, it's not so common. Yeah, it might be a Rosh Hashiva might dance at a wedding, but it's not so common to be dancing while you're on the phone. You might think, what happened? Someone get engaged? Someone heard someone got one of his children got a new job offer. I don't know what's going on. So gets off the phone, and his wife said, "Oh, why are you so happy? Why are you dancing?" And he said, "I just was yelled at so much by this person, and it was totally uncalled for." And why was he dancing? Because of this Gemara. Oh, look, I'm not going to respond back to this person. Well, I'm willing to overlook it, willing to move past it. And okay, I got a tremendous schluss for having my sins forgiven because this person lashed out at me for no reason whatsoever. I think usually meaning it's just there's no reason for this. It's uncalled for. Welcome, Ellie. We started a few minutes ago, so it wasn't called for, and so Willig started dancing because of this Gemara. It ended up being this person who thought that Rabbi Willig did something wrong to him, whatever it was. He ended up finding out that it was not Rabbi Willig, and he called back and profusely apologized to Rabbi Willig, and Rabbi Willig says, "Don't worry, it's okay. Forgive you. It's fine." So you see that the Maisa, that people obviously sometimes could be slighted and sometimes it could be totally unjust. And it's if you're able to not respond back and to not yell back at that person, it's a cause for celebration. And the person, as Gemara says, will have their sins forgiven. The Amrod, and I love in the Einam Olvim, that someone who suffers insult and doesn't insult back. Shomim Charpasam the Einam Mashivim, who hears is being disgraced, hears their disgrace and doesn't respond. Alem Akasav Omer, the pasuk says in Shoftim Parakeh pasuk Lamed Aleph, Oavav Ketzes Hashemesh Bigvuraso. This person is seen before Hashem like the sun going forth in its might. The Mefarshim on this ask, why is this person compared to the sun? And he gives a very interesting answer based on a midrash that probably all of you know. Midrash in Bereshis discusses that when Hashem created the sun and the moon, Hashem made them the same size. They were equal in their stature. And the moon complained to Hakadosh Baruch Hu, says like, can I have two kings over one nation? You gotta do something about this. Make me bigger, basically. I don't know if the moon said that explicitly, but that's what the moon wanted. And Hashem specifically diminished the moon. The sun stayed silent in the conversation. And the sun certainly was elevated, much, much, much larger than the moon. And so here, a person who is insulted but doesn't respond back, that person is the one who gets the praise and the honor, right? And the other person will be diminished. So this person is like the sun, who, when hearing disgrace, doesn't respond. Continuing, the Sipru Migodel on Vaso Shel Bava Ben Buta, and that like the story Bava Ben Buta, the Gemara in the Dharm Dastam Bavam days. This is a wild story. Get ready for this. Zelashonam. Here's Gemara. Hahu Bar Bavel the Slick Eretz Yisrael. There's a person from Bavel who went to Eretz Yisrael and they saved Itzah, and he married a woman. Okay, so someone from Bavel comes to Israel and marries a woman. Now, there's a lot of, in general, as you know from Gemara, that there's a lot of words that you have to know between the lines. So some of the things here is that this person did not speak the same dialect as the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. And his language, and it was almost like a different language. And when he ended up, imagine marrying someone who you can't totally communicate with. He ended up marrying someone you can't really communicate with. So Amarla, he says to her, for example, Bashili li b'chule, right? He says to her, bake me this thing, and she ended up doing something totally different because those words translated differently in her dialect. Ad zile tibre yason al resha devava. Now, what ended up happening, at what point he said, can you take, could you take 2 melons and break them over the doorway? As open up the melon, that's how they opened it up. Whatever, this doorway, sharp edge, whatever it was. Break the melons over the doorway. What did she hear? Now, melons, the way the word was used, this Aramaic word, to her, it sounded like lamps. Okay, take 2 lamps instead of 2 melons. And the word for doorway is bava in Aramaic. And what did she think? Oh, you want me to take 2 lamps and break it over the head of Bava Ben Buta, who was this big rough. Okay, break it over take lamps and smash this rabbi on the head. And she was a very, very simple woman. So what happened? So Zile Tavre Yason al Resha Devava. She went and she mamish took lamps and broke it over the head of this rabbi. Hava Yosef Baba Ben Buta Vidin Dina Azla Vitavra Yason al Resha. And she broke the lamps on his head. So you would think a normal reaction for a person is, what the heck are you doing? Like, I'm throwing you, putting you in Cherem, I'm putting you in jail, like, let's give you Malchus, whatever. You might think that's a normal reaction. So Amar Lay, so he was calm, and he said, someone calm, right? I mean, he was calm, and he said, Mahadidavad, why do you do this? Why you just hit me over the head with these lamps? Amar Lay, Kachti Vani Bali. She said, this is what my husband told me to do. So, without getting mad at her, without getting mad at the husband, Amar Asisa Ratzon says, you fulfilled the will of your husband. I gave you a bracha, blessed her, give you a bracha, you should have 2 children like me. The Mefarshim actually say that normally if a woman's husband tells her to do something that's usher, she can't listen. So over here, even though she was listening to her husband said to do a sin. So they respond here and they say that Bava Ben Buta realized he was so simple, she probably didn't even know that. She thought, I always have to listen to my husband, whatever he wants. And so he viewed that as a praise and gave her a bracha. The fact that he didn't get mad, the fact that he stayed calm, and certainly it was much, much, much beneath his honor to be hit over the head with lamps. He stayed calm in the situation. And here, another story of Hillel is very, very, very abridged here. I'll explain it out. We've discussed this story in the past also. Hillel Kamo Kain Sipru Merov Animasan. So Hillel, in his great humility, Zel Shan Taram Hey Adam on Vasan Hillel. So the Gemara there at the end of the story says everyone, or graphics at the beginning or end, says, and therefore a person should always be humble like Hillel. The story is, if you recall, two people who made a wager for 400, I think it was zuz, 400 zuz, where one person said, I'll bet you I could get Hillel angry. The other person says, I'll bet you can't, bet 400 zuz. And the person whose task was to get Hillel angry went to him on Erev Shabbos and asked him these ridiculous questions. Why are the feet of this group of people webbed? Why are these people have squinty eyes? Like some wild questions. And it's interrupted him right before Shabbos with these, like, I have a really important question. And they didn't even call him like Rav. They're like, where's Hillel? Where's Hillel? And Hillel will always answer calmly. At the end of the story, he said, wait, but his last attempt to get Hillel angry, he said, wait, but I have so many more questions. Hillel says, okay, go for it, ask. And then the man curses Hillel. And Hillel says, why do you curse me? He said, because I just lost $400 because of you. So he says, if you lost $400 because you didn't get me angry, you deserve to lose $800 because I should never get angry. We see Hillel's humility, where even someone asked him a foolish question, he always stayed humble. They say a story about Rabbi Moshe Feinstein. It's not a wild story, but if he heard someone in the street, I heard someone say like Moshe, like calling to their child, and he was nearby, he would like think that they're talking to him, as if like someone wouldn't say Rav Moshe or Harav Hagon Moshe Feinstein. Yeah, Moshe. Okay, I'm Moshe. Maybe she's talking. Maybe she's trying to call me over. So those are some examples of humility. Rabbi Avohu acharei rov anevaso matza shadayin lo ikia lios the kare anav. So the story of Rabbi Avohu, who he himself was very humble, and he realized, he said, I don't deserve to be called humble. Why? Zelishona's the words in the Gemara and Sota Daf Mem Amud Aleph. Amar Avohu mereish hava min vasana ana. Originally, Avohu thought, I'm a pretty humble guy. Came in the Chazina Rabbi Abba de Akko. Tiamar iu chad taima. The Amar Amoreha chad taima v'lo kaped. Amina lavam sana ana. The way it went back then, when you gave a shiur, when the Rav gave the shiur, so he spoke in a normal volume, and certainly didn't have microphones back then. It might be a very big hall, and his voice didn't project so far. So very few people heard him. And so he would say it in a regular voice, and there would be a person, not really a translator. It's not like in the Torah where they would read the Torah in Hebrew and there would be a translator to Aramaic for the people. Here, it was probably the same language, just someone would project it. So here, this Rav, Rabbi Abba from Akko, he would give the shiur, and let's say he was speaking about kosher, he says a person keep kosher because of, and he gives reason X. This is why. And then the person who's projecting the shiur to the people gave a different reason, meaning so ihu chad taima, he would give one reason, and the other person who's projecting his shiur gave a different reason, below kapet, and he wasn't makir, meaning he didn't get mad at this person saying, "What are you doing? That's not what I said." He didn't get mad. So Rabbi Avo praises him, said, "Wow, that's really a humble person. I'm not in that person's category. I shouldn't even be called or think I'm humble." It's also interesting, it's discussed on that Gemara. If it's an area of halacha, how could he not correct this person if the person's saying something wrong? Meaning the Rav is giving one reason, he's saying, no, it's this. So they respond, it must be something that's not based on the halacha l'maisa aspect of it. So it might be the time of it, like I said, maybe the reason, it doesn't matter what the reason is. If it's a different reason, this halacha is still the same. As long as it wasn't a violation of the halacha, certainly he would not correct him. Now, that's the second category. related to anivos of the four, of not being upset when people upset you and not responding back to others. Now, the third category, in order for a person to try to stay as humble as possible after actions and after this of your mentality of not being upset by others, is sinas harabanos brichas hakavod, is to run away and to hate positions of authority for yourself. It says Mishnah Arucha, it's a clear Mishnah in Pirkei Avos, Parak Aleph Mishnah Yod, Ehov es hamalacha usna es harabanos. You should love malacha, you should love work, and you should hate positions of authority. The Amru Od, Hagas libo b'ho ra'a, if a person is overconfident in their ability to paskin, shote, they're a fool, Russia, they're wicked, Vigas rough, and they have an inflated heart, inflated sense of self. The Amru, Kala Rodev Achar Kavod, Hakavod Brachamena. Gemara in Eruvin Daf Yagimel and Beis says a person who runs after kavod is going to run away from you. And the Amru Od, and it says Al Tetzei Lariv Maher. Here is going to require a little bit of explanation. When it says a riv is a fight, so it says don't go into a fight quickly, meaning don't rush to fight with someone to get into a machlokas. So does that have anything to do with what we're discussing, positions of authority? So the word, la riv, it could be like the word we're saying of like rav, like rabbanos. So don't go into positions of authority quickly, like slow down. And like the drasha, meaning la'olam al tiratz achar hasrara, that's a pasuk from Mishlei. So the explanation, Liv Siksa Rabasi, is al tiratz achar hasrara. Lama pen matase b'charisa. Lama, sorry, pen matase b'charisa. Why shouldn't you go into positions of authority? Because who knows what's going to be with what they're gonna with tomorrow. The machar ba'im, what's going to happen afterwards. Machar ba'im shalim l'chashelos. They're going to come. They're going to you're a big Rav. You're the CEO. They're going to ask you all these questions. Matam Shibam. What are you going to answer them? Meaning you're not going to have all the answers. So don't think you deserve and should be in those positions of authority. There is an interesting idea about why do they take the word riv, which means arguing, and machlokas, which the real pasuk in Mishlei seems to say, don't rush into a machlokas. So how are they taking that to mean don't become a leader? What was leadership and machlokas have to do one with the other? So it's explained that when someone becomes a leadership, certainly if someone is an unjust leader, someone is not doing it for the right reasons, then automatically it's going to lead to machlokas, and things will not go smoothly. Therefore, when it says don't go into machlokas, oh no, it means in a certain sense one could understand this line to mean don't go into leadership, because leadership will lead, if a person goes into the wrong reasons, then that will lead to machlokas occurring. Od Sham, Rabbi Menachma b'shem Rabbi Tanchum, kol makabel of srara kedei lechanos mimena, ein ela kenoeth hazeh shehu nene migufa shel isha. That a person who accepts a position of authority for his own pleasure, it's like a person who is an adulterer. And the explanation here, the connection, is that when a person ideally should get married and should do it for selfless reasons. It should be for the sake of starting a family, to be able to care for someone else, right? And so when a person commits adultery, they're going to a woman just for their physical pleasure and hurting them. So if a person gets a position of authority for their sake, for their pleasure, then, and it's going to be detrimental for the other party, then it's equated to this idea of adultery, where you're taking something that should be used in a positive way and you're doing it for the wrong reasons, for selfish reasons. Od Sham Amar Avohu, Ani Nikreti Kadosh. Avohu says, I am Kadosh, I am holy. Says if you don't have the character traits that I have, then you shouldn't go into positions of authority. And certainly a person has to know who they are. He was likely not saying that out of gaiva. He was just saying that out of honesty, recognizing his own strengths and character traits. And he says a person has to realize who they are, and the position of authority aren't for everyone. Talmidei Rabbi Gamliel, say. Interesting. Let me see. Let's get something. Interesting. In mine, it says Rabbi Gamliel, but here this definitely does not stand for Rabbi Gamliel. Different girsas. Mine and this one. I'm gonna go with mine, which is Art Scroll. I'm gonna go with the Art Scroll over the Safaria. Sorry, Safaria. This looks like it would stand for like Rabbi Yehuda. Yes. But either way, we'll go with mine. So Talmidei Rabbi Gamliel Yochichu, they demonstrated the students of Rabbi Gamliel were very poor. When someone doesn't have so much money, you want money. In order to get money, you need a job. The better the job, the higher the position, the more money you are given. So even though they were poor and they needed money, they didn't accept upon themselves jobs that had high positions, jobs of leadership. That so Rabbi Gamliel responded to them and says, do you think like I'm offering you positions of authority? Meaning, do you think he was trying to convince them to take this job? And he said, do you think you're getting authority? Like, oh yeah, you're going to be the chashav leader. The end of this is like, do you know what you're getting? You're going to be a servant. Why? Because the leader, and that we'll discuss more going forward right now, the leader has to serve the tzibur. And oftentimes, the leader in the community is actually stepped on a lot. There's not that much kavod that's always given to these leaders. Look how unfortunate it is because it buries its holders, meaning they end up literally dying, as the example is given here. Where do we know this from? That a leader is gonna die like earlier in a certain sense. The Yosef died before his brothers. Why? Says the Gemara in Brachos, because of his position of leadership. I don't know if this means, meaning it might mean like the stress that it takes in your body end up dying earlier, or it could mean punishment for being a leader. I don't know. I don't know exactly the explanation here, but certainly it's not something. Leadership doesn't have the greatest kavod when you have a pretty big. It's not punishment, but consequence, we'll say, for that position that you took. Kol shadavar. In harabanis alamasa gadol. That leadership is just a huge burden. Asher al shechem hanosio, so on the shoulders of the person who bear it. Ki ad sha'adam yached yoshe b'soch amo. Muvla bin hanashim. That really a person, before they become a leader, they're just sitting undistinguished amongst the other people. Eino nispas el atmo, and they're not held accountable for anything. Meaning, if I'm here and you do something bad, okay, what do I have to do with you? It says Kevan is all rabbanus esrara. But then when a person gets to a position of authority and of a position where they have dominance and rulership over the others, then they're responsible for everyone who's under their control. Because they have to monitor everyone. Like a shepherd, like a roeh. And to guide them with the proper the proper mentality and proper wisdom, and to make sure that all their actions are just. V'im lav, and if they don't do that, and if the actions, this is of the leader, I believe, are bad, and the leader is not a good leader, that the sins of the people are on him. Ksiv, as the pasuk says, meaning Vashamam Barashechem is the pasuk. Okay. However, I think it's probably a good place to stop. 9. Okay. Let's stop recording.